Today's topic, Michelle, is all about what makes a startup successful. I did a cohort on Monday, Michelle, at the Nova NSU, Nova Southeastern University. And every time I do a cohort, I do one about every 2 months with the university. I start the class off by talking about, or just asking everybody in the room, what makes a startup successful. And I get so many different ideas. It's actually very, very interesting. And today, I thought we could run a topic in this hour on that, on what makes a startup successful. So first of all, if you're in the audience or on stage, right now, let's all share the room. Right down in the bottom left, you can click on that button and share the room on Clubhouse. We'll do that, and that's great. Second, if you're in the audience and you have a startup and you've been successful, please open mic Friday. So we really want everybody in the audience who wants to come on stage to come on stage and talk about their startup and what made it successful. What was the secret sauce? Like what was unique that you did in your startup to make it successful? Jeff, Michelle, my co-hosts, and I'm Colin C. Campbell. We're here today on Startup Club on the Serial Entrepreneur Club podcast and live show. Now, I want to make a special announcement. We are changing the name of the podcast to Serial Entrepreneur Secrets Revealed. All right, so we are changing the name of the podcast, and but if you search for Serial Entrepreneur, you'll still be able to find it no matter what. It's one of the most popular podcasts under that search term. Michelle, Jeff, any thoughts about today's topic before we kick it off?
Yeah, I'm super excited to hear what the members have to say. We're really here to learn from each other. So don't be shy. Come on board. Even if you were working at a startup, right? It didn't have to be your own startup. Raise your hand and share with us, what you saw worked. We're all dying to know. And Mimi's going to do another amazing blog post that will be posted on startup.club within a week as well. So raise your hands. And I think we're probably ready to get started, Colin. Who do you want to start with?
I think Jeff. Jeff, I mean, you're working for a very successful startup right now, and you're actually a shareholder, and you were a co-founder of Dot Club. But I was gonna ask you about paw.com. Like, I know it hit Inc. magazine 3 years in a row for one of the fastest growing companies in America. And I was just gonna ask you, like, what do you think was successful about paw.com? Like, why do you think it just took off like that?
Well, actually, Colin, what I was going to say before you asked the specific question, it doesn't just relate to paw.com, although it definitely applies. But I think one consistent thing I think you'll find across every successful startup is a great team. The team is so important, and we've experienced that together with the team assembled for .club domains and pretty much every company that I've been involved with that I would call successful. Largely it was in part because of assembling a great team, where you have people who are aligned, who are motivated, who are entrepreneurial in spirit, even if they're not the founders, and really are willing to wear many hats, because that's one of the challenges. When you're a startup, everyone's role is probably much larger than what the job description might have said at first. And I think really putting together the right team, I think is something that you'll find if you peel back the onion at just about any successful startup.
I agree. I think it's people, right? If you don't have the people, like, what do you have? I mean, it's part of the formula, people. I also think with Paw that, we look at the products that we've launched, and we've done well in a lot of them and we've failed on some of them. And it seems like we've done well when we come out with products that are different, that nobody else has. And we have something unique and different that no one else has on the marketplace. We seem to do well with that. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Jeff?
Yeah, I think certainly, this is going to vary by vertical and what industry or business your startup is in. But certainly in our case, going into the pet category, which is a fairly crowded category, where there's a lot of Me Too products, especially in the dog bed area, where everything kind of looks the same. Us being more innovative and coming up with, something that almost defines or redefines, what a pet bed can and should look like, and marrying it with home decor so it doesn't just look like something stinky for the pets, but it's something that you're proud to have in your home and don't have to hide when company comes over. That's proven to be a very successful formula for paw.com. So in our case, in that category, definitely, coming up with something that was innovative and differentiated us from the rest of the products on the market, was a large part of our success.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Michelle, you're president of Dot Club. What do you think was the secret formula? Christina, and welcome on stage. But Michelle, what do you think? Why do you think we did so well with Dot Club? We started it in 2012. We built it up to 1 million domain names, and we were able to sell it to GoDaddy for a
A lot
very
of
high
money.
multiple. Yeah, a very high multiple. So what do you think made it successful? I mean, we had VeriSign had .com. Why did you need .club?
Absolutely. So one thing I would, and this is a good thing, it, it's not always one thing, that you have to do in every company that works. The beauty of being successful is, there's probably multiple ways you can be successful. But specifically in the case of Dot Club, I'm gonna say, like, focus. We had laser focus, and that really made all the difference for us. Again, it's another situation where it was a hyper competitive situation. It was a situation where 2,000 other new domain extensions were released ostensibly all to the marketplace within probably a year or so. And we were just one extension .club. So for us, we were super passionate. We were super focused. And that made all the difference in the world. And then second to that focus, which bred execution. We very heavily, we had a small-ish team and we held each other accountable for it. So for me, I would say focus and execution make all the difference in the world. I think we all know, and anybody that's read Peter Drucker, who, if you haven't, I strongly recommend reading his books. They're classics. Um, the hardest thing in the world sometimes, and including myself and probably many other people, is to say that two-letter word, no. But no is that's your friend. If you're super concentrated and you know what you're doing, you can execute. And if you're doing that, you'll be able to be nimble, and sometimes you have to pivot. Like, I don't know of a single company that doesn't have to pivot at times. Like, it's not all a garden of roses. So being actually very specific about what you're doing and executing actually helps you do that.
And I think that, one of the things about .club was distribution. And we traveled to probably about 50 countries, Jeff, Michelle, and myself. And the key was we had to get so we couldn't sell directly to the public. We had to sell through GoDaddy, through other distributors to make this happen. And the key was not only did we have to sign the distributors up, but we had to build relationships with them and then also convince them or work with them and sometimes pay money to have the distributors, or the registrars, they called registrars, but in essence, they're distributors. We had to pay for them um, to put .club in a good placement on the search engine. So when someone goes to GoDaddy.com, they're looking for a domain name, they'll see .club as an alternative um, domain extension. So I think in that particular business, our focus on distribution and building out a distribution channel is what helped us succeed. Any last thoughts, Michelle? And we'll jump to you, Christina, right after that.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely was the top key strategy that we focused on. And that's, we determined that that was the lever. So we focused on it like crazy, and the results paid off. So, of course, know what you need to focus on is absolutely critical. And I don't think that decision is made in isolation. For us, it was ongoing. Our senior team was constantly, evaluating, what was the top thing we needed to do, and then we, doubled down on it.
Here's the funny thing. I hope you didn't hear me munching away there on my food, but in Clubhouse we multitask often. I'm certain everybody who's come on stage is guilty of this. But I was doing that and I just realized the mute was not on, and I was munching away. So I hope I didn't disturb the audience much. Christina, welcome on stage. What makes a startup successful?
Startup successful again. First of all, I would like to say thank you, Colin, Michelle, Jeff, for this a beautiful platform for all of us to be able to learn and to integrate this into our own businesses. But I feel as though a startup takes whatever it takes, whatever it takes, whether it's .club, .com, or .net, that level as far as your dot is concerned, as long as the background, because a lot of people don't see what we do on the backhand of things. They don't see how much it takes for us to really be successful. So with that, I will say whatever it takes. Sometimes it does take long nights. Sometimes it does take outsourcing and networking, and whatever you have to do. Your startup and the success of your business is going to be contribute to whatever it took for you to get there. So if you do
It's
the minimum, that's what you're going to get.
It's
You
funny
know.
you say that. It's funny you
Yes,
say
sir.
do whatever it takes because I remember at Hostopia, and this was in 2006, 2007. I was told that we lost the Earthlink contract. Earthlink was a pretty big company, and we lost the Earthlink contract. And I said, okay, well, we're not going to take that. We jumped on a plane, my CTO and myself. We flew down, and this contract was worth about $10 million. It was a big contract, to be quite
Hmm.
frank, right?
Hmm.
So we flew down and met with the buyer, and we said, okay, let's go to the restaurant. But he had a Wego, and a Wego is a two-seater car with a
Hmm.
little trunk in the back.
Ooh.
And since I was the smallest guy, I said I'll sit in the trunk, and I literally sat in the trunk, and he just had a good laugh about that. But we won the contract in the end,
Yes.
and
Yes.
so it's like sitting in the back of a trunk and doing whatever it takes to win it is
Whatever it takes,
whatever it
regardless
takes, and
of
it's
the regardless of how you have to do it. You have to use your mind and your ingenuity, also your creativity. Think outside the box. But the way you will get there and you will succeed is by whatever it takes to get there. So
and I think
if
that's
it's
what
in the
drives
back
a
of a
lot of
truck,
startups, right?
if it's in the back of a
Yeah.
trunk, if that's what it takes, that's what it's going to take. Thank you.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. I like that. I like that point. I think it's this tenacity that entrepreneurs have that get us through through all the challenges. It's the roller coaster, right? Like, it's up and down. It's never ending. Like I know Michelle is working on a company called Meowingtons, and you can see it's going up and then it's going down.
Hmm.
It's going
Hmm.
up. It's
Hmm.
going down.
Hmm.
It's just crazy. It's insane, Michelle. Like this, I don't know how we put up with it. What do you think?
It's painful. It's painful. But, again, we continue to persist. But a big part of what we're doing is making sure the business is not spending more than it should be based on what the projections are. So, this is the dance we play until we get it all down and straight. So, there's a lot of components certainly to look at.
All right, Christina. Well, stay on. Well, if you have a few minutes, stick around. Stay on stage. We'd love to hear your comments on
Certainly.
more of the topics that we bring up here. And I'm following you now. You're awesome, Ashley.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ashley, you're new to the platform. You're new to Clubhouse. welcome on stage. And what makes a startup successful?
Well, first off, I would like to say thank you guys so much for welcoming me into the group, and I really appreciate that a lot. So, for those of you that don't know, my name is Ashley Felipegas. I'm from Port St. Lucie, Florida, and also a full time college student. But what I believe is that what makes a startup business successful is having the right resources and having the right people in your group, and also to having the right belief system so that you'll be able to integrate what you truly believe in and all of the desires and the skills that you really want to integrate and implement into the world so that you'll be able to make a better impact for others, but mostly for like a but for a good cause and whatnot. And how I'd like to further elaborate on that is that there were some experiences. Well, first off, I would like to start off. I actually started out as like a. I'm currently a college student now, but I I've actually wanted to do something that's much more greater than the current norm that we have in society and whatnot. So I decided that I would take it a little bit of a step further. So I'll be able to I'll be able to make a better impact for other people and whatnot. And throughout my search, I've came across a lot of multi-million-dollar companies and whatnot for throughout my throughout my search, and they started out pretty well, and after a few months, or even a couple of few weeks from now, I mean a couple of few weeks, I had I've had a lot of trouble trying to, maintain like a good momentum so that I'll be able to, be a little bit more so that I'll be able to be a little bit more productive and more impactful, because there was a lot of stuff that I faced. First off, I was faced with a lot of, you know, uh nervousness because I it was my first time doing, sales and whatnot, for commission, and I really wanted to make like a lot of great impressions for people, not only for myself but also for the product as well. And that's
Wow,
when
wow. Ashley, you have talked about 4 or 5 different things, and I feel like we need to unpack them a little bit. All right, so let's talk about, first of all, purpose. So, you talk about this idea that doing something good, and doesn't that, I'm curious to hear from Jeff, Michelle, and Christina as well. Doesn't that help you get through the hard times, and you're doing something good that is actually helping people, your business? The purpose, this concept. Any thoughts from the rest of the panel on that?
Yeah, I think purpose has an important purpose in a startup, because also when there's a purpose, it makes it much easier to align everyone on the team and to really have a strong culture, because a good purpose drives a strong culture. But it's funny in hearing Ashley speak and thinking about everything we've said so far. I love alliteration, and I really think that what we're talking about and what makes a startup successful, it's kind of like 4 Ps. And the 4 Ps are people, right? As we talked about, you have to have the right people, you have to have a great team. Then you need a plan, right? We talked about, Colin, you said being innovative. That's all part of your plan. What is your plan? You have to have a purpose, right? As we just talked about. And then finally, you have to have perseverance. That's the 4th P, because there are going to be ups and downs, as we talked about. There are going to be challenges, and you have to have a certain mindset and a certain inner strength to not be thrown off course by those bumps in the road, the roller coaster Michelle was talking about earlier. So you have to have perseverance. So I would say, to have a successful startup, you need those 4 Ps: people, plan, purpose, and perseverance. What do you think about those 4 Ps?
That's pretty hot. Sounds like you got a book in the making there. That's pretty cool. What do you think, Ashley? What do you think?
Yeah, I just jotted those down just now. Yeah, people, plan, purpose, and perseverance. Those are the four main keys to, you know, a healthy development and also for like a successful business. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, and it's so Michelle and I, okay, just here, full disclosure, we have we're involved in a number of businesses. And 2 weeks ago, there was a storm called Hurricane Ian,
Mm.
and literally it hit the island that we have our vacation rentals on. And we co-own a vacation rental there, and I have some other vacation rental properties there. And it hit it dead on. And this idea of perseverance is like, when it first happens, you're maybe in denial or whatever, and then you accept it, whatever. And the fact is, we got to rebuild. We got to put a new roof on. We got to, there's no power on the island right now, and it's like there's so many issues that can happen in business. And there's so many external events, whether it's the inflation, whether it's the stock market crash or crypto crash or the NFTs, whatever it is, we can't control all those things. So I think perseverance is something that every startup founder sort of hasn't, it's part of who they are. Michelle, I mean, we sort of persevered over the last 10 days right now with the storm. And thankfully, by the way, all our homes are still standing, that our vacation rental homes. But it was not easy going through this experience in the last 2 weeks, right? It was tough.
I don't know. It seems like a week, but maybe it
Yeah,
was too. It's crazy. Yeah, I mean, that's when you really find out how well the team works together, right? During these tough times. I think to your point, Ashley, people being at the top of the list, absolutely. That's what gets you through the bad times. And by the way, it also gets you through the good times because you can have different issues there as well. So, absolutely, people are critical, and it's the only way to get through these horrible times. It really shows the character and the culture.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, just resetting the room. If you're in the audience, it's open mic Friday. We want you on stage. Just feel free to come on stage. Tell us about your startup. Tell us why you think it succeeded, or it's really just about a conversation with everybody today. But I will say this is that I feel like we haven't really hit the number one reason why a startup succeeds. And it's funny because the cohort had missed it as well. Christina, you gonna try go for it? Are you gonna try to?
Yes, I want to hit that number one reason. I want to go back to Jeffrey, and he was speaking about purpose. Please do not mind my baby girl in the back seat.
No, we love babies on Clubhouse.
But purpose, I'm a woman of words. I'm a woman of words and definition, and purpose is defined as the reason for which something is done or created or for which something exists. So, my key word is the reason. What is your reason? Because behind your purpose, there is a reason for your purpose. And so when you're not just going into business, because if you go into business, the stats say between 1 to 3 years it may not work out for you. So it really does have to be a reason and a purpose behind whatever you're trying to do. So I think your reason is also important too.
Yeah, I think it really is, and it what drives us through all of it, through all of the challenges. And I know even with the vacation rental business, we really do enjoy it. We we're really fighting for good reviews. It's actually a bit of a game, and when we do launch them, we actually have we actually look for those reviews, and we're trying to get really good reviews, and it makes us feel really good that we're doing a great job. I will tell you the number one reason why startups succeed ultimately is that they solve a problem. And, a lot of startups launch and they don't solve a problem. And then ultimately it sort of peters out. I probably done a few of those startups in my own time. But the fact is, if you can solve a problem in your industry, uh, that can help your startup succeed. Michelle, Jeff, Christina, Ashley, any thoughts on that? Just solving a problem.
Yeah.
Well, I
Oh,
Oh,
sorry, go
sorry.
ahead.
Go
oh,
ahead.
okay.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. Um, I think what solving a problem means for entrepreneurs or in businesses is that they learn to observe. They actually learn to observe what goes on in their community or among other people that they may know or may not know, and they're able to, find and see the problem, for just as is. While there's a lot of other people, some of them, they may see the problem, but they don't really do much about it because it just becomes like an anomaly. Like it just becomes like a norm just to having problems stay there, like kind of sweeping it under the rug. But if it's if it's not benefiting anyone, then why is it still the way it is? So I think for so I definitely think for businesses and entrepreneurs, they we're here just to be able to help people find better solutions, or we ourselves can make up those solutions that would best fit, that would best resonate, and that could best you know implement to the problem, and then it will immediately just and then or immediately or over time it could you know it won't have to be so negatively impactful for other people. And it also provides a lot of great value and a lot of other stuff.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Very articulate. Jeff, you were about to jump in as well. Any
Well,
thoughts?
all I was going to say, Colin, I think certainly that's a common belief that you have to solve a problem, but I think it also depends on what type of business you're in. So I would broaden it a little bit and say that you need to solve a problem, a need, or a desire, because there are a lot of successful products, especially if you get into consumer goods. You can have a very successful product that doesn't necessarily solve a problem per se, but it solves a desire. And that desire could be to look cool. So some of the big successful fashion brands, they don't solve a problem necessarily, but they solve that need or desire where someone wants to have something that's going to make them look a certain way or make them feel a certain way. So I think it can be bigger than just a problem, but you have to find that place in your customer's heart, whether that's getting there through solving a problem, a need, or a desire, in my opinion.
Yeah, interesting. And then if you take it a little bit further, I'm sort of like I'm reaching into my past now and pulling out different companies that have succeeded and whatnot. And I'm thinking about Hostopia. Hostopia was a company. It did an IPO and it sold to a Fortune 500 company in 2006. Uh, that particular company, it took us about 6 years to figure out an X factor. An X factor is something that Jim Collins talks about, that Vern Harnish talks about. He's been on our show, Vern Harnish, on this show, and you can catch him in the podcasts, your favorite podcast network. You can just listen into those shows. But the X factor is something unique and different that you have that no one else in your industry has. And Vern Harnish sometimes talks about solving a bottleneck in your industry. And the company I like to use as an example is National Car Rental. They literally re-engineered the way you rent cars, and I've used them now for about 6 years. And it used to be you fly into an airport and you line up, and then you spend half an hour, blah blah blah, getting. Now I just land in. I just did a few days ago in Toronto. I landed, walked to the lot, picked my best car on the lot and drove out, showed my ID and credit card, and drove out. It was so fast. They re-engineered their entire company to solve that problem. Domino's Pizza is probably another famous example. 30 minutes are free. In Canada, it was Pizza Pizza. And I was actually running a pizzeria at the time when they came out with this. And I'm like, oh, there's no way they're going to stay in business. They can't do that. And then they became the largest pizza companies in the United States and Canada. So it's interesting. I'm not saying the quality is good of Domino's. I cannot, or Pizza Pizza. I cannot stand either of their pizzas. So I'm just saying, they're very successful with their business model. At Host, driving it back to Hostopia, what was our X factor? Well, we recognize, if you remember, I told you the story about the WeGo and flying into Earthlink in Atlanta. And the uh, problem in that deal was that the individual who was making the decision was very concerned about a migration, that if we migrated 1 million or 2 million email addresses and 75,000 websites, that the product would that it would something would go wrong and he would lose his job. Quite frankly, that was the number one thing holding us back from getting deals, was people were worried about losing their job in the migration. So we came up with 100% migration guarantee, and we actually would pay them $350 per website that they lost, because that was the fair market value of those customers at the time. And it was unbelievable. We won that deal, and then not only that, then we won AT&T, and then we won all the rest of the customers in the industry, and the company did very, very well. If you can figure out your X factor, that can be really helpful in helping your startups be successful. All right, let's get some more
I
people
think
from the
just,
audience too. Jeff, go ahead. But
yeah,
just
just to
if
add to
you're in the
that, Colin.
audience, yeah,
So go ahead. If you're in the audience, raise your hand. Come on up on
exactly. Thank
stage
you,
and
Jeff.
join in the conversation. I love that hearing that story, Colin, and I've heard you tell it many, many times. But it is great, finding that X factor. But I want to drag it back to desire, because what your X factor in that example did was satisfy a desire, and that desire was not to get fired, right? Your customer, the person you were selling it to, didn't want to get fired, so you came up with a structure, which was ingenious, which would prevent them from worrying about getting fired. So you satisfied not their need. They didn't really need to change platforms. They needed to figure out a way to do it and not get fired. And that was their desire.
Yeah, well, we have a comment in the comments here. Sort of try to ask you to join on stage, but not every business is about. Okay, let me read it here. Let me read the comment. All right, not everything or every startup is about solving a problem. The problem might have been solved by other startups, and the new ones can be the replica. I actually think you are onto something there. These, quick copies. You can copy a concept or an idea and do pretty well if you're fast to market. Uh, CK Batia, if you're in the audience there, could you feel free to just click the microphone, but I'd love to have you on stage and just sort of get some more from you. There he is. All right, that's great, because I think that's a good point. I think you're making a great point there about. There he is. So what do you think, CK? Like I think you're right. I think you can find somebody else who solved the problem. Somebody else did the technology and just copy them and go to market. And I see that happen an awful lot. And I see some success, especially if you can sell them in other channels. Like, you might be a Facebook expert, or you might be an Amazon expert, or you might be you might have retail stores, or you might be another one is the home shopping network. You might have relationships with them. And somebody launches a product, and you see that product, and you launch it into your own networks as well. What do you think, CK?
Hey Colin, thank you for adding me to the group. So my thought over here, I'm also, just to introduce myself, I'm into this industry for like last 20 years into the IT industry. Um, I left Microsoft and to build my startup. And while I'm building my startup, definitely all the questions which are being, raising over here, how to be, make the startup successful and the challenges people are facing, I'm right now facing in building up the problem. Because while I'm developing and while I'm thinking about the features, the use cases, I do see, these things are already into the market. The questions when I go to the people and, connect with different, the leaders into the market, they do have the same question. What is the differentiator? I said, what differentiator you need it? It's about, how much then, for example, I'm working on my education startup, and education applications are already there. What is the differentiator I'm doing it? The second question comes, okay, I will add more technology like, NFT, metaverse, so and so. The question comes, that can be, people can have the same replica out of that. Where is the differentiator? So for me, getting the business and putting it into the market with a different perspective, and with the add-on features which comes down the line, you know maybe later it may become a differentiator. For example, Facebook, what Facebook has started earlier and now what the Facebook is, you know, is a very different story. When Facebook has started, we were having a lot good um, social, media like Orkut, which was almost doing the same thing, but down the line it has gone down, and Facebook has taken over. So I always feel that
And what was
being
the name of that site? What was the name of that site before Facebook, Jeff? Do you remember the name?
Friendster.
No, it was
Friendster.
Friendster. It was Friendster, but there was another one. Was it MySpace?
Well, MySpace was after Friendster. I think Friendster was first.
Was it
Yeah.
Friendster and MySpace? And
Yeah.
so why didn't they become number one? Why did Facebook take over? And now TikTok's, ticking them off,
Oh.
but they really are taking over. But
This has
so it's
happened
interesting,
time and
like,
again. I mean,
yeah.
the iPhone was not the first smartphone. It wasn't the first touchscreen phone, but it was the one that made the difference. And Apple, once again, with the MP3 player, the iPod was not the first MP3 player on the market. There were many, but the iPod innovated and changed the message and story behind it and dominated ever since.
Yeah, CK, is that sort of where you're going with this notion that you can basically copy, but you can just make it a little different, make it a little unique. Is
Yes,
that
absolutely. That will go down the line. But for the startup, let's have the product into the market. And then adding the features based on the behavior and all that, always, keep on adding, and, with the differentiator. And I really like the comment, I forgot the name, like, achieving the, solve the desire. So every entrepreneur, I believe, is going with the desire to do something, and if that desire is being solved, I think the purpose is also getting solved with that. And with that thing, we are getting some product into the market. So I really love that, solve the desire part, which is very very important. Before even we may come up with differentiators someday. People may do something with the quantum computing, which is right now in theory. But who knows, we do the things bit faster. Like I give you the example, another example, Byju's. I'm not sure how many of you have heard about that Byju's educational platform, which is from India. And that guy
is it
was a
Baidu or Baiju? How do you say it?
Byju, I think that's how
Okay,
it's
Baizu.
pronounced.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's an educational platform. So how that particular entrepreneur, the owner, started. He was a tutor. He started tuition in his room, in his house, and from there he started off his journey and built up the platform to have the mass audience. And then later he said, okay, I want to get the education in a specific format where people can understand more in a better way. So he started indulging big entrepreneurs. Even the the videos, the content is being, he tied up with Disney. So the content and the videos, the characters, he take outs from the Disney because he has got the tie up. But what is making that particular Byju's not much successful is his cost, because its cost has got increased. So it is not as a mass product now. It is only being achievable who can spend money. How many of you can spend additional money of 500 to 1K every month on the tuition, which is not the actual education but the additional curriculum activity? Not everyone. So so it's Byju's is solving the problem, but not at the mass at the same time.
Yeah, and
So
it's interesting because, America has got such a broken education
yeah,
system. It's the best in the world, yet,
yeah,
it's just unattainable for the
yeah,
vast majority. And I think that these education companies that have come out with these learning modules and online learning and these kind of things is sort of a democratization of knowledge.
yeah,
And so what you're bringing up, this whole concept of, they're solving a big problem. And I also think that these companies are, sort of catching the next wave, and they're positioning themselves. You see that with the doctors' offices now, and you see,
yeah,
online, and you saw, Peloton did very well. It's obviously doing poorly now, but I'm just saying, like, you saw them as the world shifts and changes, positioning your idea or startup around that could actually make a big difference.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
CK, thank you for coming on stage. And just to reset the room, we got 18 minutes left, and we're just having a fun conversation about what makes a startup successful. I know, V, you're working on your first tech startup there. I'm just checking out your profile there, and would love to have you on stage to hear about it, and what your challenges are or whatever it is. But anyone in the audience today, if you want to come on stage and talk about what, a startup, what you think has made your startup successful, please join us. It's an open mic Friday here on the Serial Entrepreneur Secrets Revealed live clubhouse and podcast. All right, what's next? Jeff, Michelle, Christina, Ashley?
Um, hey guys. Yeah, so there was something I've been meaning to mention if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah, so um reason being, we've been talking about a lot about, earlier about purpose and whatnot, and also about learning how to solve problems, you know, through businesses or entrepreneurial. Sorry, I'm just trying to say the word
I
entrepreneurial.
know it's the worst, isn't it? I had to try spelling it, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. So there was something that you know I've actually started a new division for a current company that I'm working with. That company is called Seven Figures Funding. I'm not sure now. I'm not 100% certain if anyone is familiar with it, but it's actually a funding company that helps startup businesses, you know, just to help get them off the ground so that they'll be able to, provide for themselves, as many resources and, viable, viable help and, just to help their businesses become successful,
It's
especially
interesting.
during.
Funding, like you've been holding back, Ashley, because funding is such a huge element of what makes a startup successful. If you don't have the funding or you don't know how to get the funding. So with this platform, does it sort of give direction on what kind of funding do they talk about?
They actually give different types of funding. They actually give about hang on. Yeah, I'm just in front of my, computer. They actually give startup funding for, business credit and also for personal loans. So those are pretty good funding options for, startup businesses. And as
Do they do
and
any government, do they talk about any government funding? Because the one thing about, being Canadian, and I live in the United States, but us Canadians, we all looking for the government to help us on everything. And in the United States, I was actually able to get a $350,000 grant to build the incubator in Fort Lauderdale. So there are programs out there, and I'm just curious if you if that platform talks about like how to get government funding for your startup.
Yeah, there is one platform that Seven Figures Funding has also partnered up with, and it's called Referral Partners for the. It's called Bottom Lines. So Bottom Lines, that's actually a government funding program where they offer something called. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar. Is anyone familiar with ERC, the employment? Yeah, the employment. Um, sorry. Yeah, the employment.
No, I mean, like, you know more than us on this topic. I think we're all pretty much in the dark on this. So you're doing great. And yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. Like, I think you know, in order for a startup to be successful, we need funding. We need the
Right.
oxygen. We need to have that oxygen in the company to be able to function and start and grow, et cetera, et cetera. I know with our vacation rental business I talked about earlier, Michelle, you know, it's all about buying at a good price, but also leverage. We need to be able to find a bank that can work with us, that will lend us the money, that will allow us to do the next vacation rental and so forth and so forth. So it's funding's absolutely critical. Actually, I do want to jump to V right now because I know I harassed her and you know asked her to come on stage and you know I see it's a tech startup that you're launching V. What is it that you're launching and what do you think is going to make it successful?
Hi, thank you for bringing me up. My startup is actually in the health and fitness industry, but I had a question if that's okay. I don't really
That's
have
fine. Yep, that's
a
fine. That's fine.
statement. Okay. So my question is, I have the opportunity to work with someone, but they're in another country. And the way that we met was through a co-founder matching site. So I was wondering if y'all have any suggestions on how to kind of vet this person and how I should structure it, because when you sign up, you have to tell the platform that you're willing to give away a percentage of your company. But I haven't spoken with this person or met with this person yet, and we're supposed to have our first conversation on Monday. So I was wondering how you would approach that situation.
Okay, I love this question. And I was talking about it in the cohort on Monday with the class at NSU. The one thing that I would do first and foremost is profiling. So we're going to want to profile you. I don't know if you know the DISC profile or if you know Myers-Briggs, but we're going to want to pick a platform. We're going to figure out your profile. First of all, we have to know your profile, and I'm already getting a sense of it right now. That you're pretty social and very thoughtful. So I haven't got your profile done yet, but you can actually get very good at figuring out people's profiles. But what you want to do is you want to figure out what's your profile. Now, if you love sales, we don't need another salesperson. So what we're going to need is an operator, or we're going to need a technology person, or we're going to need, you know, somebody who's going to complement you. And if you connect the right profiles with your business partner, that can make a huge difference. You know, it's funny that a lot of people will often partner with their friends post college. And this is a formula for disaster. And I hear so many horror stories. You hear about the good ones, though. You know, you think about Steve Jobs and Wozniak and what different person. I mean, but if you know the two personalities, you know they're they're totally they were totally the opposite personalities. Is it Steve Jobs and Wozniak, Jeff? And who did Bill Gates partner up with when he with well, what's his
Steve
name?
Ballmer.
Not Steve Ballmer. I know that was he
Oh,
destroyed the company. I'm talking Paul Allen. Paul
oh,
Allen.
Paul
See,
Allen. Yes,
I
Paul Allen.
usually rely on you for the names, right? But we're talking about very different personality traits. And when you're doing a startup, well, sales is a key element, right? So we're going to want to figure out. So I'm not very good at sales. Jeff is very good at sales, by the way. So that's why I partnered up with Jeff when we did Dot Club, and like I can't remember people's names, and you know, of course, now here I'm remembering the names, and Jeff's not. But point is, no, but Jeff is really good at this, and he really knows how to make sales happen, and I'm really not good at that. So I needed to have a business partner. So when I did Dot Club, I partnered up with Jeff, and that's that's how that was one of the reasons why the company succeeded, quite frankly, because I'm just not it's not who I am. So we're going to want a profile, and that's the first piece of the equation. Now it's a bit scary, this platform, and you got to give up shares. And no, you're going to have a relationship. You're going to talk to him or her, and you're going to figure out, what is the deal here, and then you'll move forward, hopefully. But do make certain it's complementary, the profile.
But the thing I'd mention also, V, about equity, and we've talked about this before in other episodes of this show. Um, it's very important, especially when and even if you're starting a business with a friend. In this case, it's someone you don't know, but even if it was a good friend, when you're starting a business with someone and you're giving them some equity, you want to have a vesting schedule for that equity. You want to, right up front, know what happens should that person leave the company, because many startup founders have hurt themselves by starting a company with someone, splitting the equity 50-50 or whatever split they did, and then after a year or something, the one of the partners decides, I don't want to do this anymore, but they still walk away with their equity. So now you have someone who's not part of the business, who owns half of the business, and that's going to really make it hard for you to raise additional capital in the future. So whatever equity you have to give this co-founder, you want to make sure that it's documented in a way that it's tied to them staying with the company for a period of time, and anticipates what happens to that equity should they leave before a period of time. So it's really
Well,
important to
Jeff,
have equity vest.
you said something really important there about documenting. I don't. I'm just flabbergasted at how many times I've seen people start businesses without documenting the ownership. It's just absolutely fascinating. We got to document it. It has to be on paper. It has to be written down. Does that answer your question, B, at all, or do we help here? Or maybe Michelle, you have an idea for
Yeah,
B?
I just want to throw this in here because when V asked her question, she said something very specific. She said, how do I vet them? So, first, I would say to V, like, really be sure that you're listening to your internal voice. Because what I took away from that, what you were saying, is there is a need. This is somebody in another country that you've never met before, to know that they really have done what they've said they've done, and that they really have the capability to do what they're saying they can do. So I think listen to that internal voice. You know what you need, and I think you need to like be able to, vet this person by talking to other people that they've worked for. You need to make sure that they're for real and that they can do what they're promising to do. I think that's absolutely critical. And just listen to yourself and don't stuff down that voice. You need answers, and you need to make sure it's going to work.
Yes, that is my concern because so we put our profiles up on this website and everything looks good. I looked at the LinkedIn, everything looks good, and it almost looks too good. So I'm just a little bit apprehensive going in, but I think it's a healthy amount of nerves. I don't think I'm being paranoid or anything like that.
No, I don't think you are, and I think you got to figure out how you can get third parties, to collaborate that this is person is who they say they are and can do what they say they can do. And for me, I heard you say they're in another country, but I'm going to say for me, I would want to meet them in person if it's something that you want to move on. I find that just to be immensely, helpful. Different things for different people, different styles, but I would want to meet them in person for sure.
Yeah, and I think with the partnership, we also not only talk about profiles, but we also want to values. Like, what are your values? What are your core values? And do they align? Because if they don't align, this ain't gonna work. And that's something that maybe I think you're right, Michelle, having an in-person sort of like even just going to a restaurant and sitting with them for an hour, you can learn a lot about somebody. So I totally agree with you there. And we do have to. We only have 5 minutes left, and we got Sahil and Funmi on stage. So I'd love to hear from you, Sahil, about what makes a startup successful.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. And this topic is really, really very interesting. And so, without any further delay, I would like to start. So, I'm Sahil. I'm from India. And I'm into edtech space. We have a machine learning platform where we evaluate the learning style and the learning curve of a child and provide them soft skills enhancement, like emotional intelligence, techniques of debating, and all right, so quickly, on the topic, what makes startup successful? I believe it's customer. As being as a business, or being as an entrepreneur, you should have a direct conversation with your customer, and I think your organization or business is the medium to communicate with your customer. It should be like point A to point B. Like point A is your startup, point B delivering your services to your users. This is what makes your startup successful, and everything in between, like co-founder investment, is making that bridge more stronger to reach out there and to hear customers more and more about the suggestions, feedback, and the conversion ratio will automatically increases, and it will get succeed, for sure. I mean, this is as per my understanding, because I'm from marketing and sales background, so I'm moreover customer centric person, and believes in profitability as well. So that's it about my point of view. I'm done speaking. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. And it's interesting because this idea that you have to be customer centric startup is not really, not everybody gets it. Like, not everybody really jumps into that idea or concept, but that's one thing that, I mean, let's talk about this vacation rental business, right, that Michelle and I have, and it's like 5-star reviews. That's all we want. What does the customer want? It's all about the customer. So that's right. That's probably one of the key things. If you can build a customer-centric company and focus on the customer, that can help you improve your chances of success. We have 3 minutes left. Funmi, you're on stage. You've been waiting, very patient. We'd love to hear from you, Funmi, as to what makes a startup successful. You there?
Hi, Colin. Hi, Michelle. Jeffrey. Hi, everyone. I did have a question, but I know the room's finishing. So I'll quickly say I'm realizing that having a core team is crucial for the success of a startup. I feel that an entrepreneur definitely needs support, but support from the right people in the right areas. So I would definitely, and going from V's question around finding a co-founder, I think it's super important to have that core team to help you execute upon the vision. So that would be my tip. Thank you, Colin.
It is so core. It's so important. It's so core. It's the team. It really is the team, right? And do we have any last thoughts from anybody on stage here? Popcorn style. Jeff, go for it.
People, plan, purpose,
I think
perseverance.
that's like literally the blog that's going to be published, right? That Mimi's going to write here on this one. Anyone else on the stage? Well,
All
go
right,
ahead,
so
Sahil.
Oh wait,
yeah,
sorry. Oh, go ahead.
there's a very
Sorry.
famous quote which I would like to say: the only way to predict future is to create it. So go and get it. That's it.
Ashley.
Amazing. Oh, yeah, and also guys, whoever might be interested in whoever wants to fund their business, feel free to follow me on my page, and I'll be more than welcome to help you out and send you a couple of links so that you could be able to get in touch with a few of my other partners, and that way the business will be lively and flourishing.
Well, that sounds great. I think everybody, who's a startup appreciates that, and we will. I'm certain everyone will reach out. I'm now following everyone on stage. Fumi, I didn't even know like you were on Clubhouse until right now, so that's pretty awesome that you came on stage and shared that stuff with us, and I'm following you too. So, look, it was a great episode. It was really all about the community coming together to figure out what makes a startup successful. I feel like we should run the show much more often with this title because I think that's what this is all about. We're trying to help each other figure it out, figure out what it is that's going to make us successful, because we're not alone. We're on Clubhouse, we're in Startup Club, and we all have our startups, but we're not alone. We have a place to go and to learn and to connect and share with others. And it was really, really appreciate everyone on stage for everything. It was a great show. We have two very big authors who are coming on this show in the next month, but you're not going to know about them unless you're on the email list, which is on startup.club. So if you go to www.startup.club, you can actually sign up to an email list. And when we have a big author or a big serial entrepreneur, we had Bhavin Turkai on, who started two unicorns. I mean, he's a multi-billionaire, and it was pretty pretty phenomenal. We had the founder of BoxyCharm on. We had the founder of Reebok on. Like these speakers, they come on to our show. It's pretty really cool. And we got two really really good authors, famous, very best-selling authors, famous authors, who are coming on next month. Go to www.startup.club and sign up to that mailing list. What a great show. Thank you, everyone. It was a great, and by the way, come back next Friday. We want you on stage. We want you on Friday, every Friday, 2 o'clock Eastern. Bye for now.